Hey, welcome back to Evil's Comics. I'm Evil Mike, and I got a review for you today. From Boom Studios, we're going to be talking about Once Upon a Time, issue number 6. It is written by Jason Aaron, art by Kila Del Duca, colors by Tamra, Bonvillian, and then pages 1 and 26, art is done by Alexandre Tefenkgi, and colors by Lee Loughridge. Before we get started, please like, comment, subscribe on this guy's channel. It does help. Hit the bell if you're so inclined. You never know when I'm going to be dropping reviews or other videos. I have no schedule, so if you're so inclined to hear my reviews, that kind of thing, you might want to hit the bell. It's all free. It doesn't cost you anything. The like, the subscription, the comment, everything. It's all free. It don't cost you nothing. So let's get into it. There was many people that requested this book, and for good reason, right? Oh my God, this book is good, but we're gonna get there, right? And I do apologize. This is the foil variant. I couldn't pass it up on the foil variant. We had a break in between issues 5 and 6, and I want to believe that's why we got the foil variant, because it's officially like book 2 of the series. So we are following the journey in a post-apocalyptic world, and we are following Mezzi and Maceo. At this point, they've gone through some trials and tribulations and had to overcome not just major physical stuff, but mental stuff as well. At this point, they have the directions, which Mezzi has had kind of from the beginning, but they do have the directions to the Oasis, this mythical place that exists within this wasteland world, and that's kind of where we're at this point in the comic. With fair warning, before we start this, if you have any, if you're not a fan of nudity, this issue does feature a ton of nudity. It's not distasteful or anything like that. It does match up with the story, but fair warning, there is nudity. So let's get started, right? So basically, we are starting off right where the last issue left with, Maceo and Mezzi beating the kind of, what was it, the Wasteland Rangers, kind of doing away with all that. Mezzi finally, kind of putting that past behind her and finally, kind of agreeing to continue the journey with Mezzi, but at the same time, falling in love with who he really was and what he brought to the table, kind of thing. So at this point, we are kind of a little fast forward, because it's just Love Fest, 2092 or whatever, I don't know what year they're in, but but basically that's where we're at. It's just Mezzi, and it's how it should be, right? They're in full love mode. Like I said, there's quite a bit of nudity, and it's just because right now they're in that love stage. They're fucking all over the place. Pardon my language, but that's what's going on, pretty much. They're at that point where they're blending in together, where every time they cuddle, their legs become unable to decipher whose legs are who, and that's with the art. It's demonstrated right here. But like I said, that's kind of where they're at. There is a lot of mention of hey, would you marry me in the middle of the road? Would you marry me in the sky swamp? Stuff like that. And it's kind of like an ongoing joke, I would say, because every time they end up stopping to fuck within the wasteland, it's pretty much, that's kind of what comes up is, hey, would you marry me here? Would you marry me here? Eventually, as they're still traveling, in the direction of the Oasis, but they eventually do come to this iced out, terrain, and they find this bathtub which happens to have water. They do light some kindling, which it's not really shown, but they do. You do see later on that they do light the tub or whatever. Maceo's a master, inventor kind of thing. The conversation comes up at this point because they've been traveling for so long, they're not even sure if the Oasis is a real thing. Their love is so strong at this point that they're what's the point of getting to the Oasis kind of thing? We could just build a house around this tub and just live our love, right here kind of thing. At this point, Mezzi is determined to find the Oasis. She's kind of set on this mission, and at this point she's not going to be deterred. Either she's going to get to that location that's within the tape, that's because it's from that scoutmaster that she killed, and I think it's issue 3 for reference, I think so. But as she was killing him, that's how she got him to divulge the location of the Oasis. So basically, this conversation comes up, and it's more the determination, like, why stop now? We might as well at least get to that location, and once we get there, if it's not there, we'll come to terms with, that kind of situation, kind of thing. And basically, it's said many times in different ways, but basically wherever Messi goes at this point, Maceo is going to go. Wherever Maceo is going to go, Messi's going to go. They're at the point where they know that their worlds need to be together for them to be happy. Messi at one point is all new to this. I mean, Maceo literally brought him in, her in to her world, and it has totally changed it for the better. But at this point, it's not so much living in the wasteland because they've found, love, kind of thing. So we do get to a point when they start talking about that they feel all alone because of how they've been traveling, and on top of that, the love that's added in there, kind of thing, and how they've been all like kind of in the puppy dog stage, right? So we do get to this point where they start talking about other encounters of people that they do meet, and at this point, it's not really the Ravengers and stuff, which we saw in like the very first book. It's more like at this point, people are just crazy because it's almost damn near impossible to live, in the wasteland without some sort of intelligence or help, kind of thing. They mention this mountain that they come across, and people just stand there and scream all day until their throats fill with blood. Another cave that they happen to go by, and a guy screaming at them, demanding that he kills them with the knife that he has. Another lady that tries to crawl out of a ravine that's full of bones and stuff, and every time she falls back down, she ends up laughing hysterically. And pretty much, they show some other scenes like this just to demonstrate that, that's, ooh, my camera, that some people are just kind of, trying to make it, and they're really not. They're really, it's more like a mental issue at this point, because they're just standing around, maybe dancing or screaming, or I don't know. But we do get to a part in the story where they do take a break in a cave, and they light a fire, and someone happens along in the rain and happens to see the fire, and it turns out to be this girl, Kalista. They end up like talking for a little bit before they allow Kalista in, but eventually they bring her in, and Messi lets her, get all cuddled up right next to her so she can bring the warmth back, kind of thing. There is this conversation about like how, Kalista's seen this wasteland, and she hasn't really seen any other morally good or helpful or any other persons like that, kind of thing, and is just amazed by the kindness and the giving that Maceo and Mez are showing this girl. During the conversation, Messi tries to explain that, since Maceo has brought her into his world, it had changed, and she didn't know that the outside world could be like that. She stayed hidden within her, hidden kind of mental fortress type of thing. But until she met Maceo and was shown that the world could be different, she wasn't aware of it, and that's kind of what Kalista's seeing and witnessing firsthand. There is, and at this point, it's kind of like we're in a brand new world, so no rules, and that's kind of what happens. And at this point, Kalista and Mezzi have like a kind of mess around fest themselves, and then they do show that Maceo's over here, not jealous at all, kind of happy that his girl is, having a good moment, kind of thing. There, like I said, there's no jealousy or anything that comes up. They do say their goodbyes. Kalista kind of mentions that she's not that great with people, and she needs to kind of like train herself to do so. But she was told about the oasis, and if they happen to find the oasis, to light some kind of massive fire or, a flare into the sky so she could see, and if she, maybe if the wind is going the right way that day, she'll happen to see it and come to them, and they'll reunite, kind of thing. At this point, they continue on with their journey, and more so in love than they were before because of this encounter, kind of thing. They do get to this point where they do encounter other people, but it's not really like the Calista situation, but it's more like, hey, experience this, experience that, kind of thing. But it's all like good encounters, kind of thing. But eventually, as just like the Kalista thing, those encounters kind of part ways and stuff. But just like before, they are mentioned and told about the oasis and stuff. So if they do find it, and no. We do get to a point where we do see some like of the turmoil that's going behind the scenes, and it's basically within the directions that are on that tape. The directions were told by like a guy that was dying and then being forced to tell the directions, and Maisie having to go back and listen to the directions is kind of like mental anguish kind of thing. She's just constantly thinking about when she was killing that dude. But not only that, that's all recorded on the tape, and she has to listen to all that, all the screams and pains and agony. But eventually getting through that tape and still listening to and she does finally come to a place where she destroys that tape, and she feels like they're at the end of the journey. It is mentioned at the tape, the last thing they'll see before they come to the oasis are massive thorns, which are kind of showcased here, and she kind of goes in there. Maceo kind of gets doubtful at a second, like, hey man, maybe we need to turn around, it doesn't look like we can go forward. But just before they do, look what we have found. We found some more ruins, right? And that's what Maceo sees at first, but Macy sees something different, and it is green. It's the first time they've seen green, and sure enough, it is the location that scoutmaster had told them about. It is the oasis, and at this point, it's time for them to build. That they thought, Messi thought when they got here, she was just going to burn it all down despite the Wasteland Rangers. But at this point, with the love and the relationship she has and some of the other relationships they've come across along the path, they're at the point where instead of burning it down, they want to build it up and bring those other people in, kind of thing. I will like to mention that they do name the city Golganaza or Golagananza, something like that. Don't quote me on the name. I'll type it out here with the magic of editing. But I will like to point out that this book, I showed it at the very beginning. It is called Book 2, The Rise and Fall of Golaganzala, or however it's called. I'm pretty sure it's a plant name, and I'm just mispronouncing it. But hey, you talk about a banger of an issue. To come back to that, there is no like Hanton wants to come next kind of thing. There is no covered. They don't do that in this comic, so it's kind of like it just abruptly ends, and we just have to wait till the next issue. But you talk about my thoughts are exploding. We've already seen some of the parts of the future, so we know that this doesn't go, to plan. But you talk about they're setting up a love story upon a love story, and we're about to see some like sad stuff that's about to happen. To come back to this issue after a break, this was amazing. This book was already phenomenal, but to come back to this, and this is how the story is progressing, is exactly the way I want it to progress. It's phenomenal. But that is my review on Once Upon a Time at the End of the World, issue number 6. Let me know your thoughts down below. That's all I got for you guys. I got some more videos coming. Always. Alright guys. Bye.